AOC is trying to impeach members of the Supreme Court. This is ridiculous. You guys have got to check this out.
With Judge Jeanine Pirro, the 5 co-hosts. Judge, great to have you here. I've been watching you throughout the morning. First, I want to get your reaction as we do continue to hear from members of Congress, as obviously the political fallout of this we have yet to fully see. She plans to file articles of impeachment, Judge. Here's the tweet. Throw it up on the screen. The Supreme Court has become consumed by a corruption crisis beyond its control, she writes. Today's ruling represents an assault on American democracy. Now it's up to Congress to defend our nation from this authoritarian capture, she writes. I intend on filing articles of impeachment upon our return. To you, Judge.
You know, Sandra, whenever anyone on the left talks about an assault against democracy, you know that it has little, if any, meaning. That's their go-to line when they don't have a substantive argument. Look, our government is set up in a way that there are 3 branches. The Supreme Court is a branch that has final decision on legal decisions in this country. They are not willing to accept it if it doesn't align with their political ideology. And this is part of the institutional breakdown of our government. We are now in a scenario where the left and the people who call themselves progressive are not willing to accept a 6-3 decision by the Supreme Court. But make no mistake, there have been administrations, there have been politicians who have been in disagreement with decisions for the last 150 years. But now, all of a sudden, they think they should be able to impeach a Supreme Court justice. Look, a lawyer can be brought before the grievance committee for trashing a Supreme Court justice. And the sad part about all of this is there is a final ruling in this case. Their hatred for Donald Trump, their political ideology that causes them to support someone ideologically or cognitively declined is something that they consider paramount. And they're willing to do anything to destroy our system.
She said it's right on the money because this all comes down to TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. If Donald Trump was never president and the Supreme Court had this exact same ruling, they would not care at all. It's the mere fact that it protects Donald Trump, and that's what they hate so much. So driven by hatred to stop this man, they will do whatever it takes to go after him.
Has really allowed the Biden campaign to turn the page on the aftermath of the debate. And we just had a campaign call that we listened in on where former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, who's now part of the Biden campaign, spoke to this. Listen to what he said.
Okay.
My message today is simple. This is not a drill. Donald Trump is the single greatest threat to the United States of America in a generation. We can't let him anywhere near the Oval Office again. We can't count on the Supreme Court or any institution to hold him responsible. It's going to be up to the voters in November.
Well,
go ahead. What's the response to that?
My first response is, if this guy was a member of law enforcement, I feel terrible for anyone that had contact with him. Number 2, he's a former officer. Number 3, explain why Donald Trump is ahead in so many states, especially those swing states that are so important. Look, these people have a big mouth. They speak about things that the American people are not aligned with. And when the United States Supreme Court makes a decision as important as this one, the Supreme Court speaking for the first time, because no other president has ever been criminally indicted for actions while in office. It's about time we listened.
We're living through crazy times. What's happening to Donald Trump should not be happening. It's the mere fact that he's standing up for the everyday American people that's pissing them off. The lobbyists and the people in charge of the government, the shadow government, they know that Donald Trump cannot be swayed one way or the other. He's going to do what's best for America, plain and simple, because he's got all the money in the world. He's not doing this for the money. He's doing this for the principle.
Justice Roberts, the president is entitled at a minimum to a presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. That immunity applies equally to all occupants of the Oval Office, regardless of politics, policy, or party. Will Sharp, member of President Trump's legal team, joined me earlier on the Faulkner Focus with his response to all of it.
They've recognized a very broad doctrine of criminal immunity for former presidents. I think there are some choice paragraphs in there from Chief Justice Roberts criticizing the haste with which this prosecution has proceeded. The Biden campaign of lawfare against President Trump has just been dealt a decisive blow by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Really interesting part of that, Judge.
Yeah. Well, the fact is that the Supreme Court also attacked not just Jack Smith. I mean, this is a court that has ruled against him unanimously in the past. He is not considered an ethical prosecutor. He's the one who indicted the former governor of Virginia. That case was overturned. He has a political agenda. But what I think is so significant about the Supreme Court's decision is not the final recognition that when a president is engaging in official acts that involve core essential presidential duties, he has absolute immunity. And then, of course, it's remanded to the lower court to determine what are official versus unofficial acts. And for official acts, he has presumptive immunity. But they knocked down some of the indictment. They knocked down some of the arguments that the president isn't entitled to speak to his vice president or to the attorney general because the president has exclusive jurisdiction and authority over those particular issues as they relate to the Department of Justice and crimes that are being prosecuted. The Supreme Court made it very clear that there are some parts of this that are protected by the core constitutional right of a president. And let me also say that a couple days ago, the Supreme Court rendered a decision kind of dumbing down some of the January 6 charges, saying that they were not supported. And now some of the lower courts have to look at not just the January 6 defendants, but Donald Trump as well, in terms of how the Supreme Court attacked that January 6 obstruction charge.
Judge, I just want to sort of circle back to where we started, which was with AOC calling for articles of impeachment following this ruling. And you had heard ahead of this decision, top Democrats, Chuck Schumer among them, asking for Justices Alito and Thomas to recuse themselves from this case, making allegations about impartiality questions. What kind of an impact does it have when you have our elected leaders sort of questioning the credibility of the court?
Well, I think it has a huge impact, and I think that the Supreme Court has of late been subject to tremendous criticism. And I think that, there's a reason that our founding fathers wanted these justices to serve for life. I mean, they should not be affected by the mob or by the criticisms or the attempts to impeach. And I think that more than anything, they recognize how important their job is. In this case, Gorsuch said it himself. It's not just about the case before us. This is a case for the ages. And they knew that. And that's what the decision reflects.
Such a great point. All great points, Judge. Thank you.
You think Chuck Schumer would have those words for the Supreme Court if Schumer knew deep down that they were going to side with him? The judges are acting on behalf of the Constitution of the United States. And AOC is an absolute clown. Of course she's doing this because they just hate Trump so much. They'll do whatever it takes to stop the man, even if this is the right ruling, because this doesn't even have to do with Trump. This has to do with presidential immunity to the end of America. I think the Supreme Court did the right thing here, and AOC, I wouldn't even pay any mind to this girl. I don't know how the heck she has the following that she has. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Did the Supreme Court make the right decision by this ruling? Also, what do you think? Do you think the articles of impeachment are going to go anywhere? They'll get some traction, or they'll be dead in the water? Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear that down below. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash a like, comment, subscribe, and I wish you guys nothing but the best. Until next time.